I have played Fortnite consistently long enough that I consider myself a Fortnite player. For years, it's been clear that if I wanted to get the most out of any of the live service games, I would have to commit to just one. So for a long while, I would hop around, dabbling here and there in the various offerings. But Fortnite is the longest I've stuck with one option, having completed the battle passes for the last 8-ish seasons. Yes, even the extra rewards, and yes, I even subscribe to Fortnite Crew for Christ's sake. You'll get the subscription fee back in V-Bucks every month on top of every battle pass. Why wouldn't you do it? I tell myself. But despite having just Chapel Roan maxed in the shop, I might be swapping out Fortnite for an old fling. Overwatch. The original Overwatch was really my first foray into live service games. I never experienced the early days of the genre with games like World of Warcraft, my parents weren't paying for that subscription, and any multiplayer experience I had had up until that point was in the vein of a Call of Duty. I enjoyed the original Overwatch quite a bit at its launch, as I did when its sequel dropped 6 years later, but neither time did I go in with the mindset that I wanted to commit to it as a game that became my go-to live service experience. After hearing about all the work the team had done over the last few years to improve the game, and then learning of its big 2026 reset, I thought now would be a great time to see if Overwatch could replace the space Fortnite, a game I felt was starting to get a little stale, was currently occupying in my gaming rotation. We'll get to the latest update with its UI overhaul and new characters in a moment, but first I wanted to talk about some of the meaningful things that have changed in Overwatch in the time since it first launched as Overwatch 2 in 2022. The first is hero unlocking. When Overwatch 2 released, the way you obtained new heroes was really frustrating. They would be free, but with a catch. You had to make it to tier 55 of the seasonal battle pass. Now, if you had purchased the premium battle pass, you'd have them unlocked from the jump. But if you didn't, and you failed to reach tier 55, the hero would be locked, requiring you to either complete specific challenges to unlock them, or just ponying up the actual money to buy them in the store. Now, the heroes are just available to everyone from the jump, and considering I hadn't played much of the game since that 2022 launch, that gives me a lot of heroes to check out. The second big change is the perk system. Now, over the course of a match, depending on your performance, you'll be presented with 2 rounds of perk options, minor and major, which makes slight changes to the character you're playing as. For example, the new tank character Domina's minor perk options are either she restores some health after deploying her shield, or the range on her weapon is increased. After playing around with these perks across different characters, I find that they successfully toe the line of giving the player a slight edge, but not overpowering them in a way that makes someone with both their minor and major perks unlocked an unstoppable force. That being said, there have definitely been a few matches where I was struggling to find my footing, only to then unlock a perk, which then helped me get a foothold and push forward. This system has even had me checking out previous characters, some of which launched with the original game in 2016, that I have rarely ever touched, but I am now curious as to see how they play with their perks unlocked. Perks do just enough to make even tried and true heroes feel fresh again. In Fortnite, while you can find items in the game that change up the way that you play, with new items being added over the course of a season, aside from a handful that release in a year that really change up the meta, the game's loop has become fairly monotonous. I find myself somewhat aimlessly gallivanting through Fortnite matches these days, sometimes obtaining a victory royale without even realizing there were only 2 of us left on the map. In Overwatch, you are acutely aware of how near or far you are from victory or defeat at all times. There have been a bunch of other additions in the 3+ years since the game's launch that helps bolster what it offers players. There's the new Stadium mode, which leans into the game's MOBA elements more and adds a third-person camera, and allows for a dizzying amount of different character builds. I've only dipped my toe in it since returning to the game, but I'm excited to dive in deeper soon. There are new fun match types for the main game, which do feel right at home with everything that has come before. And yes, sweet loot boxes are back after fan demand, which are earned exclusively through playing the game, giving players rewards beyond the free battle pass without the need to have to spend money. But what about the big new update? Of course, the headline of this Season 1 reset is the introduction of 5 new characters all at once. I was able to get some of the GameSpot staff together, some lapsed Overwatch fans, some that still frequently play the game, and we were able to play some rounds with a team composed entirely of the 5 new heroes. While we struggled in the first couple of matches as we got our heads around each of the characters with no tried and true mainstays to rely on, we eventually were able to find our groove and found that you actually can create a solid team composition from using the new heroes exclusively. Each of the characters offers something different across a wide variety of playstyles. There's the damage hero Emery, who has a basic skill set for new or lapsed players to help them get a feel for the game, with players joking that he's the closest thing to Master Chief that Overwatch has. The other DPS character is Anran, who can shoot flames with her fans and then literally fan the flames of any hero that catches a light. With her abilities to do a flaming dash and then turn into a literal ball of fire, ping-ponging around and setting enemies ablaze, she can cause a ton of chaos in a relatively short amount of time. Mizuki, the first of the 2 healers, is a well-rounded hero that can deal a bunch of damage with his Spirit Glaive, but also has a satisfying healing mechanic with his hats that can be thrown at players, bouncing between teammates that need healing. The other healer, Jetpack Cat, a long-rumored hero for the game, is quickly able to fly up high above the map and either heal teammates or damage enemies, depending on what the situation calls for. And finally, the tank hero Domina is all about corralling the enemy, whether it's with her sonic repulsors that push characters back, her crystal charge that can be sent out and exploded at a time of the player's choosing, or her ultimate, which imprisons enemies before also exploding.
Go on, admire.
All in all, each character felt easy to jump in with, but also seemed to have a lot of potential for those looking to really explore all that their moves have to offer. If these heroes set a precedent for the quality of characters we can expect going forward in 2026, another 5 of which are scheduled to release this year, the game's roster will be in tremendous shape. Alongside the new heroes is a new UI overhaul and a renewed focus on story. With the former, it's taken a bit of getting used to after a decade of it staying relatively unchanged. Some things, like the ability to jump into playing a game no matter which menu you are in, are great. Other aspects, such as just how much busier the UI feels, are not. Over time, once I get used to all the changes and work through its myriad quirks, I'm sure it will be fine, but this UI change feels more like a mixed bag than it does a genuine improvement over what came before. Then there's the story integration. Ahead of the launch of the original game in 2016, I remember eagerly anticipating the release of the animated shorts that set up the characters and conflict at the heart of Overwatch. Then the game came out, and pretty much ever since then the game's world and story have taken a backseat so that players can essentially take the equivalent of digital action figures and smash them together. As someone that never cross-pollinated their action figures as a child, Spider-Man never teamed up with the Power Rangers. The fact that members of opposing factions so flagrantly team up with and face off against each other has always rubbed me the wrong way about not only Overwatch, but other games with a similar gameplay structure. I've since made my peace with the incongruity between Overwatch's story and its gameplay, but I've always been unhappy with how the franchise's narrative has never been a priority, because I think there's always been a ton of potential in it. The team at Blizzard is promising to rectify that with the Season 1 relaunch kicking off the Reign of Talon storyline, which sees Vendetta, the daughter of the nefarious organization Talon's original founder, usurp its current leader Doomfist in order to bring the group out from the shadows and to take a more front-facing role in world domination. Of course, none of this actually plays out in the main game modes, but instead is relegated to a story tab in the menus that features a mix of animations and motion comics to unfurl the game's narrative ambitions. This would be serviceable enough if I felt that the game's conquest missions, which try to simulate the Talon versus Overwatch conflict by having players pick a different faction to side with, actually did anything with the story. But it essentially just gives another set of challenges to complete in its action figure smashing modes, with faction-themed rewards to unlock by completing them. It's a bit of a disappointment, but I also want to see what the team has planned for the future. Clearly, they are recommitting to Overwatch's narrative as a central pillar of the game, and I'm hoping that this is a case of this element of the game simply taking time to ramp up rather than coming out of the gate swinging. And at least in Overwatch's case, I'm eager to learn more about its world and characters. In Fortnite, despite Epic's best attempts, nothing that it has ever done, outside of the spectacle of its big set pieces, has ever drawn me into its narrative. Something that I don't feel disappointed in, however, is how well Overwatch plays on the Steam Deck. Returning to the game with the handheld now in my arsenal of gaming devices has been a delight, whereas with Fortnite, my only option on the Steam Deck is to stream it via the cloud, which mostly runs well, except for the odd occasional hiccup in connection that reminds you that you're not playing on a client that's running locally and can sometimes cost you a match. Overall, this 2026 update successfully builds upon several years of improvements that has me eager to swap to it as my daily live service experience. It clicked for me the other night when, after playing a couple of hours of Overwatch, I realized I still had dailies left to do in Fortnite, and my enthusiasm to complete them just evaporated. I've since reflected on my time with that game, remembering that the only reason I got into it in the first place was because Doctor Doom and a bunch of other Marvel characters were being added to it. And while I enjoy its Battle Royale gameplay, it's become rather mindless now, especially in contrast to that of Overwatch, which constantly requires you to be mentally engaged over the course of a match. I realize that with Fortnite, I'm mostly only into it to unlock new things on the Battle Pass, or acquire enough V-Bucks to buy the latest drop in the shop. With Fortnite, I increasingly feel that all it has to offer is just the action figure smashing together spectacle. Overwatch, on the other hand, will show me what I've unlocked in a new Battle Pass tier after a match, and I don't even bother checking what the reward is because I just want to get into the next game to hone my skills on a character or dabble in a new one entirely. Each hero unlocking a new potential of gameplay to satisfyingly set off all the right synapses in my brain when playing as them, and getting good at playing as them. Fortnite offers no such gratification, and so, for now at least, I'm putting it aside and picking up Overwatch as my daily play.